We'll go ahead and get started. We'll start with the invocation and pledge by Superintendent Van Zandt.
Join me in prayer if you would. Heavenly Father, Lord, we come to you tonight a thankful people. Lord, we thank you for your grace and your mercy, which is fresh and anew every day. Lord, as we approach Memorial Day, we thank you for those who have given every full measure of devotion so that we can live in a country, Lord, that's as great as America, the greatest nation on earth. Lord, we thank you for those who went ahead of us and gave those sacrifices. Lord, we thank you for those who are still serving around the world tonight and here in the United States to protect those freedoms. Lord, we thank you for our students. They're numerous. You know the hairs on every head, and there's well over 35,000 of them, Lord. And they're precious, and we thank you. And we thank you for the families they come from and an opportunity to serve them, Lord, and to come tonight and deliberate on policies and procedures that would benefit them. We thank you for those that we're recognizing, Lord, for perfect attendance and academic achievement and so many other great things that happen every day in the Clay County school system, Lord. We're just so grateful for your provision and your mercy on us. Lord, I ask that you guide this elected body tonight as they deliberate and figure out what they can do to honor you through our positions of service. We thank you for those who have come in attendance and be with everybody and give them a safe trip home. And all these things we ask in Jesus' name. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, good evening. Our school board meeting for May 21st, 2015 is now called to order. And as you might have guessed, I am not Mrs. McKinnon. Let the record reflect that Mrs. McKinnon is not present tonight. Welcome, citizens of Clay County. I want to take this opportunity to thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to attend tonight's school board meeting. This meeting is our opportunity as your elected representatives to collaborate openly and make decisions that will decide the future direction of our public schools and the education of our children here in Clay County. If you wish to address the board, there will be an opportunity to speak for 3 minutes. Please fill out your card, which you'll find located in the back of the room that look like this, indicating the specific item number or topic you wish to speak about, and turn it in promptly. No additional cards will be accepted once the board moves to the discussion agenda. Your participation is welcomed and appreciated. Now we'll move to the adoption of the consent agenda. The consent agenda has item C19 pulled to discussion, and C8 was withdrawn. Mrs. McKinnon put C8 on the agenda before she had to leave on a business trip last week, and in preparation of the board backup, it's not ready, so it was withdrawn. I withdrew it as the acting chairman. So with that, I will entertain a motion for the consent agenda minus item C19.
I'll move approval.
Second.
We have Mrs. Gilhausen with a motion to approve. Mrs. Studdard, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? No. Motion carries 4-0. Now we'll move into our...
Before we go on, I'd like to say something about item C8, since it was on the consent agenda, and I actually pulled it to discussion. I don't feel that it should have been withdrawn. And Ms. McKinnon is nowhere in the country where she could have done this. So it seems odd to me that this would have been withdrawn without notifying me as the person who pulled it to discussion first.
I didn't know that you pulled it before I withdrew it.
This was the, for those in the audience who are wondering, C8 was the appointment of the bargaining team for the CCEA and the CESPA. And I pulled it for discussion reasons about the cost of it and the number of people, with there being an addition to one on the CCEA side.
And it will come back on the agenda, but as the acting chairman, I have the authority to remove it from the agenda. It will come back, I'm sure, at a later date. It was just not ready.
Oh, I'm sure it will come back when everybody's here so that it will pass the way the superintendent would like it to. Thank you.
Now we'll move into our recognitions and awards. Mr. Van Zant, perfect attendance.
Thank you. Ms. Adams, would you join me and assist me? Tonight, it is our pleasure to recognize some students who have had perfect attendance in their academic careers thus far. And, you know, work ethic today, just getting people to show up to work on time, much less every day without missing a day. And you look at these students and their dedication to it, and especially these elementary and junior high school students, that meant some moms and dads and grandmas and aunts and uncles and other people are seriously invested in their education too, which is one of the things that makes our school system so great. So our very first recognition for perfect attendance, kindergarten through 6th grade, 7 years worth of perfect attendance, is from Lakeside Elementary, Alexander Ariava Gomez. All right, now we're moving on to junior high school, K-8, 9 years of perfect attendance. The first recognition from Lake Asbury Junior High, Megan Ray Gibson. Good job, Megan. Next, from Wilkinson Junior High, Mason Isaiah George. You can't use bifocals and kind of turn your head and read sideways all at once. It's throwing me off here. I'm about to fall down. I only had water with supper, I promise. Next, we're moving on to our high schools, K-12, Clay High School, Dalton J. Garrett, 13 years of perfect attendance. Now, I have to just share a story. You know, I mentioned earlier that grandparents are a part of this successful equation in Clay County. Dalton's grandmother contacted me and his school board member about a month ago because Clay High had their graduation senior awards night tonight starting at 6. Our meeting starts at 7 to make sure, after all the investment in Dalton getting to school every day for 13 years, that he was able to be recognized in both places. So congratulations, Dalton. And if Grandma's here, Grandma, would you stand up and take a hand? Because I think you've been a big part of this. Oh, come on now. God bless our grandmothers. The next one is also from Clay High School. That must be a really fun place to go every day. Is Justin Kyle Deal. And he might have been getting a scholarship or something after 6:30 or 7 tonight, but we will have a makeup day at our June meeting, so if anybody is here tonight that knows somebody or hears the name of somebody that's not, we'll be happy to do this recognition again in June for anybody else. And our final Perfect Attendance Award for the 2015 school year comes from Ridgeview High School, Alexandria Marie Cronforst.
Now, Mr. Wingate, our state science fair participants.
Good evening, Superintendent. Ms. Corngate, probably now is not a good time, but I will be absent tomorrow. Just want to go ahead and inform you ahead of time of that and everything. Sorry. Congratulations to those folks. All of you have attended one of our great events, and that is the Science Fair. Such a wonderful event. And it's that time of year we want to recognize those students. And certainly we want to recognize also the Science Fair coordinator. She's going to come up now and introduce those students as the 14 that went to state. And we'd like to recognize, again, the Science Fair coordinator, Ms. Nancy Watson.
Thank you, Mr. Wingate. I'd like to start by thanking the Clay County School Board, the Clay Rotary, and Orange Park Medical Center for their continued support of the Clay Rotary Science and Engineering Fair. We have the opportunity to take 17 students, 14 projects this year went to the State Science and Engineering Fair, and once again our students did spectacular work and led the way for continued success in Clay County. I'd like to at this time recognize Miss Jamie Shaw from from Green Cove Junior High School. If she attended with me, if she could come up, she's going to help me. And if I could also ask Mr. David Goldberg, who's the Director of Marketing, who has been instrumental in having us secure scholarship funds for not only our students, but this year they were able to even supply additional funds that went to our schools, and we're able to recognize our top schools, and that was a very big incentive for our schools. And also, the fair would never have been able to go on in all these years without Miss Lillian Bell from Clay Rotary, if she would please come up. And Miss Lillian Bell has been the science fair chairwoman for the Clay Rotary, and she gets all of the Rotaries within Clay County to come together and work together and provide the facilities and all the volunteers, and she coordinates all the judges. It's a spectacular undertaking, and I would say it's probably our largest academic event. We even had the pleasure this year of having some of our school board members come out and judging. It was just a really spectacular day. With that, I'd like to also say, you ask yourself what really makes this type of student, and does this happen by accident? So I've given a lot of thought, and I had to resort to quoting someone else. So in the words of Thomas Edison, he said, being busy does not always mean real work. The object of all work is production or accomplishment. And to either of these ends, there must be forethought, system, planning, intelligence, and honest purpose, as well as perspiration. And that's what each and every one of these students did with the support of their teachers, their administrators, and their parents and their families that gave them the support. So if we can take a moment to just ask the school fair directors to stand, and these are the ones that coordinate. If we have any fair directors in the audience, I know I saw Ms. Coombe, and I saw we've got one, and we have two. We have one at each of the schools. They might not have gotten the email. And if we could also ask the teachers, our teachers and our parents and our administrators to stand and just give them a round of applause for really putting these students together. Lots of shy administrators and parents. With that, we'd like to recognize our students, again, in no particular order, and some of them were unable to attend, but from Thunderbolt Elementary, and I don't believe in attendance, though, was in the junior engineering, who took third place in the state in junior environmental, was Gavin Baker from Thunderbolt Elementary School. We had Mr. Zachary Barkin from Clay High School. He was a state finalist in mathematics, senior level mathematics in the state. From Fleming Allen Elementary School, we had Graham Bajati, who won fourth place in the state in junior botany. That is sixth grade, fourth place in the state. Just thought I'd mention that. A student who was unfortunately moved out of the district, we wanted to try to keep him from Clay Virtual, was Mr. Joshua Brown, who took junior medicine and health. He was not able to attend. Another student not able to attend, but Olivia Evans was a state finalist from Oakleaf High School in senior medicine and health. 3 that are here from Orange Park High School, if I'd like to call them all 3 up as they worked as a group, was Mr. Anthony Fricona, Mr. Cole Hewitt, and Michael Nee. Unfortunately, Michael was not able to attend. This combination of students were recognized with the honorable mention in senior level engineering with their robotics, underwater robot. They were also recognized by the United States Navy for engineering excellence. From Orange Park Junior High School, we had Mark Jacobson, who took 4th place in the state in junior mathematics. I believe he's there. From Shadowlawn Elementary, Josue Jorge Silva. He took honorable mention in zoology. He is also opening up the Suns game in his choir group tonight, so we'll send his certificate out to him. From Clay High School, we had Mr. Chris Maring, who was a state finalist. From Fleming Island High School, Bailey Piner, who was a state finalist. And from Green Cove Junior High School, we had Owen Pope, who's also a state finalist. From Green Cove Junior High School, we had Mr. Michael Pyle. Come on. It's going to take me a minute. He was recognized by the American Association of Physics Teachers. He also was recognized by Broadcom, which is another engineering and science fair. It's a national one. It's the top 10% in the country. He was also recognized by the Florida Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services. And as what grade? You are looking at the 8th grade, 1st place in the state of Florida in physics. I always say that doesn't happen by accident. It's a lot of good teaching and a lot of good support bringing these children up. From Clay High School, we also have Matthew Rank and Tyler Center. I was able to keep up with the entire event watching his Twitter feed. They were recognized by the Florida Association of Science Supervisors in Senior Chemistry. And from Fleming Island High School, we would like to recognize Jose Rivera he was recognized by the United States Air Force in recognition in senior engineering. If we could take a moment, if the parents or the administrators, teachers would like to come up and get a quick photo with the students. If we could have the administrators and the teachers, fair directors, come on up. See the Green Cove administrator and teachers. Come on up. Ms. Coombe, I see you back there. Thank you. These administrators put on and make sure these schools are putting together fairs. It's very difficult. There's a lot of competition with this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Watson. Next up to recognize some outstanding social studies teachers will be one of our curriculum specialists, Ms. Kelly Watts.
All right, thank you, Mr. Wingate.
I have the honor of recognizing 5 social studies teachers here in our county. These are 5 awards that are, these are 5 teachers who have been nominated for a state award, and they're coming in from our district. If I can have all 5 of them come down, and then I'd like to tell you a little bit about them. So those 5 know who they are, so if they can come on up here and we can recognize them. All right. All right. And do you want to stand up? Okay. All right. First up here is Mr. Fowler. Mr. Fowler is a civics and history teacher at Wilkinson Junior High. This is his 9th year teaching. He is extremely creative, very passionate teacher, and he really knows how to get the most out of his students. It's really amazing. All the projects, what he does with the kids is just an amazing classroom. And so Mr. Fowler has been recognized as the Outstanding Social Studies Teacher of the Year for Clay County in the middle school division. All right. Next up is Mr. David Fields, and if his face looks familiar, that's probably for a pretty good reason. He is also our Clay County District Teacher of the Year for this year. He has been nominated as Clay County's Outstanding Teacher, Social Studies Teacher in the high school division. He teaches U.S. history at Orange Park High. And what really struck me about his classroom and his teaching is not only is he incredibly dedicated, just like all the other teachers you see up here, he's innovative. If there is something that is new and it's just come out, you go into his room and he's been doing it for 2 years, and he's good at it. And he just knows how to reach the kids and get the best out of them because he knows his kids inside and out. He's an amazing teacher. All right, next up is Miss Danielle Herrick, and she has been nominated as for Prentice Hall's Excellence in Teaching History Award. She is a teacher here at Fleming Island High School. This is her 6th year teaching, and her room is, if you walk in there, you will see exactly what happens when you get an extremely passionate teacher who knows their stuff and sets really high expectations. She knows how to spark the kids' curiosity, and the work she is able to get out of them, you would think it's a college classroom, but it's 11th grade, and these kids love her class and they love history. All right, and then we have Judith Doherty, and she's been nominated as Clay County's Outstanding Social Studies Teacher of the Year in the elementary division. This is her 26th year teaching. She's at Lakeside Elementary School, and she teaches 6th grade world history. Judith has she has a passion for what she teaches. She is dedicated to their achievement. And I think the best thing about her is that she is so excited to lead others on that path. And I think when you have a teacher who's excited and they're willing to share, it only grows the profession. And the people who win are our students. And Judith is a great example of that. So thank you. And last but certainly not least is Sharon Moore, who is Clay County's Warren Tracy Beginning Teacher recipient. And it was funny because as she was nominated, I thought, because I've had experience with Sharon before, and I thought, no, she's not, she doesn't qualify. You have to be in your third, you can't have taught more than 3 years. And then I thought, wait a minute. No, this is her 3rd year teaching. And you would never know it. She has the knowledge and the integrity and the professionalism and, of course, the dedication and passion of someone who has been teaching a long time. She's She's got the passion of an early teacher with the expertise of a seasoned teacher. And we're very excited and very lucky that she found her home here in Clay County. All right, so thank you very much. Do you want to get a picture?
Yeah. Mr. Van Zandt, can you come on down? Let's get a picture there, sir. Thank you, Kelly. Outstanding. Outstanding teachers. All right, our last group is a familiar group to you. Every year we select some students for the all-county academic team. They go down to state and compete in the Commissioner's Academic Challenge. They have always represented the district admirably. They do a great job. And so let me introduce their two coaches for our county academic team. They're going to come up and introduce the students, and that is Ms. Susan McInerney and Mr. Ken Remsen.
Good evening. First, I'd like to take the opportunity to thank Superintendent Van Zandt and the school board for their continued support of the academic teams in Clay County. I have the pleasure of working with not only the senior high, but also the junior high academic teams, and I'm hoping that maybe next fall when they have their competitions, we'll have you show up at some of them. We would love to have you and support them. And it's been my opportunity to work at the county level with all of the coaches, but also to represent this county team is selected each year after our regular season. We give a test, and the students scoring the highest on the test qualify for the team, and they practice for about 4 months before we go to the competition. And this year we were happy to make it to the semifinal round in the state of Florida. Our competition is called the Commissioner's Academic Challenge. We've been very blessed to have Commissioner Pam Stewart speak to us at our banquet the last few years, and she supports this program very strongly, and I appreciate your support and hope that we can continue to count on that support in the future. At this time, I'd like to introduce my co-coach, Ken Remsen, who is also the academic coach at Orange Park High School, and he's going to help me with some awards. We have 6 members of our team. One is not here this evening because, as you know, this time of year with seniors, they're at a lot of different things, as you've heard already tonight. And one is at her final band concert at Ridgeview High School, so she will not be with us, but we will recognize her. First up is Matthew Benda from Oakleaf High School. This is Matthew's second year. Oh, I don't know what that was. This is Matthew's second year on the Clay County academic team. Matthew Benda. And no, you're not seeing double. We have his brother, Brett Benda, and this was Brett's first year, and we enjoyed having him on the team, also from Oakleaf High School. Also from Oakleaf High School, Osvaldo Bonilla. This was Osvaldo's first year on the team. Returning 2-year member of the Clay County academic team, also from Oakleaf High School, Aria Henderson. Not with us this evening because she's at her final band concert of the year, Miss Kira Benton from Ridgeview High School, who is a 2-year Clay County academic team member. And all of these young people were seniors and will be graduating in just a few weeks. So we offer them their congratulations. And our only junior on the team, we hope to see him back next year, is Eric Horning from Ridgeview High School. Once again, thank you for your support of the academic teams of Clay County Schools.
And we have one final recognition and award tonight, Mr. Van Zant.
Many of you know that May 2015 is special, and it's a little bittersweet for many of us in the Clay County school system. This will be Miss Adams, our illustrious Deputy Superintendent's last school board meeting as deputy. Now, she has a grandson in kindergarten, so I don't think Miss Adams is going to stray too far over the next 12 years. I think when we talk about accountability and grandmas, I think my feet are going to be held to the fire here for a while. But I'm going to ask Miss Adams to come up, and our school board attorney, Mr. Dan Sykes. As many of you know, Mr. Sykes returned home from Afghanistan about a year ago, and evidently still has a buddy or two over there flying. And our nation's capital.
I love a microphone. Truly, I am speechless. I just have to say, for the record, this has got to be the finest school district ever. I came here in 2001. The thing that struck me then, July 17th, 2001, that strikes me today, May 21st, 2015, is the high-level professionalism this county continues to carry every day. Administrators, teachers, staff, support staff, everybody expects a lot of everybody here, and everybody measures up. Now, we don't always agree, but we always do get back to work, and I just can't thank y'all enough for allowing me all the opportunities I've had here. Some of you have teased me because I've had several jobs since coming to this county, but I've loved every single one of them, and I'm excited for all of you. Technology has had the hugest impact on us in the last 10 years, and certainly in the last 5. And I keep telling people, if I was 40, I'd be all over this, but I'm not. So I wish all of you the best, and I thank you all from the bottom of my heart. You have all been so kind to me. You've been so generous and just helpful and supportive, and you've just made this so much fun. So I thank all of you, and I thank the school board. I thank the senior staff. Y'all have just been great. That group over there, they're great too. We got 5 more days of fun. And so if you want to come by and see me next Wednesday afternoon, please come by. I have a book. I want people to sign and maybe take a picture with me. So thank you. Thank you.
Now, I believe most of them have left, but I wanted to say that if there were families and students here for recognition and awards, that we would not be offended if they left. Certainly, they are welcome to stay. So we're going to get into our presenters. We were supposed to have had Lauren Hoffman for Concert on the Green, and she was unable to attend tonight. She had some travel difficulties. But I just wanted to say that Concert on the Green is Sunday, beginning at 4 p.m. at Magnolia Point Golf and Country.
No. It's at St. John's Country Day School.
St. John's Country Day. Oh, I'm glad I asked. My flyer was incorrect. But anyway, so starting at 4 p.m. at St. John's Country Day School, fireworks at 9:30. Is that still true? 9 o'clock, 9:30. So always a wonderful event. So please, if you can attend. And we're sorry for Ms. Hoffman's travel difficulties. Next, we have Ms. Susie Glover.
Hello, my name is Susie Glover. I'm the Director of Food Nutrition Services. This evening I will be sharing information with you on a new program the Food and Nutrition Services Department will be implementing for the 2015-2016 school year. I will be providing you with an overview of the community eligibility provision, identifying eligibility requirements, and identifying the new CEP schools in Clay County for the 2015-2016 school year. We'll talk a little bit about CEP in Florida and some of the advantages. The Healthy Hunger Free Kids Act of 2010 included the CEP as a new option to allow high poverty schools to feed students breakfast and lunch free of charge at qualifying schools with no application process. CEP is a 4-year option. Schools may opt in or out each year. Data is collected through April 1st of each year to determine eligibility. Eligibility is based on the percent of identified students who are directly certified at each school. In order to be eligible, the DC percent must be 40% or higher. So we take the number of identified students and we divide it by the total enrollment, and we come up with a percent of identified students. I've given you 3 examples here. Coppergate Elementary. Of the 539 students who are enrolled, 191 of those students are directly certified, which gives us a percent of 35. So Coppergate Elementary would not be eligible for CEP. Middleburg Elementary, of the 602 students who are enrolled, 326 of those students are directly certified. So we get a percent of 54. So Middleburg Elementary would be eligible for CEP. In our third example, Charles E. Bennett, of the 859 students who are enrolled, 580 of those students are directly certified, giving us a percent of 68. So Charles E. Bennett would be eligible for CEP. After eligibility is determined, the next step is to calculate the reimbursement rate. The percent of identified students is then multiplied by a USDA-determined factor of 1.6. The resulting factor is the percent of total meals claimed and reimbursed at the federal free rate, which is currently $2.98. The remaining percent of meals are claimed and reimbursed at the paid rate, currently 28 cents. Schools that fall below the direct certification rate of 62.5% that cannot claim 100% free reimbursement must consider the possible financial impact. So again, using the same examples, Middleburg Elementary, we know that they have a direct percent of 54. So we take that 54% and we multiply it by 1.6, giving us 87%. So 87% of those meals would be reimbursed at the federal free rate, and the other 13 would be reimbursed at the paid rate. In our second example, Charles E. Bennett, we know that 68% of those students are directly certified. We multiply that by 1.6, giving us 108%. So all the meals that we serve would be reimbursed at the federal free rate. This is the Community Eligibility Provision Decision Tool for Middleburg Elementary. So I used October participation data and I compared the traditional method of reimbursement with the CEP method. So with this, we stand to lose revenue by participating in CEP at Middleburg Elementary. So case in point, qualifying for CEP doesn't mean that it's financially the best decision. And this is a Community Eligibility Provision Decision Tool for Charles E. Bennett. Again, using our October participation data, I compared the traditional method of reimbursement with the CEP method. Because we're able to claim all the meals at the 100% federal free reimbursement rate, CEP claiming provides greater reimbursement. Districts participating in CEP who cannot claim 100% federal reimbursement risk a financial shortfall. There is the option to group schools together to increase the DC percent. So by combining schools who are lower than the 62.5% threshold with schools higher than the 62.5% threshold, you can take the combined average and still receive 100% federal free reimbursement. So I've provided two different scenarios here. The first box shows the schools we can group together and claim 100% federal free reimbursement rate. The second chart shows that as we add schools with a lower DC percent, that it reduces the average and in turn our percent of meals that can be claimed at the federal free rate. So based on the data, we're excited that Charles E. Bennett, Clay Hill, Grove Park, SBJ, Wilkinson Elementary, and W. Cherry will be part of the CEP program for the 2015-2016 school year. Just to give you a little information about what's happening in Florida, these are some of the districts that are participating currently in CEP. Okeechobee will also be participating next year, as well as Putnam County. Putnam County is going all CEP next year. So some of the advantages: all students receive both breakfast and lunch at no cost. There's no application process. Eliminates overt identification issues for students. Improves nutrition to students at risk. Potential for attendance and test score improvement. Simplifies meal counting and speed of serving lines. And it's also shown to increase breakfast and lunch participation. The Food and Nutrition Services Department is committed to ensuring a smooth transition. Through collaboration and teamwork, we're prepared to successfully implement CEP in Clay County.
Thank you, Ms. Glover. Is there any questions from the board for Ms. Glover? Thank you very much.
All right.
Okay, scheduled citizens request. Joanne Denmark.
It says not to adjust the mic, but I can't. I don't want to break it. My name is Joanne Denmark. My address is on file. Good evening, Superintendent, school board members, Clay voters watching via TV, internet, everybody here. I'm a proud product of the Clay County school system. I'm now a parent of 2 children that attend Clay County Public School. You're hearing from me as an alumni, as a parent, advocate, and stakeholder in my children's education. This is the 2nd year that my children's education has been compromised, and I will no longer allow this to continue without speaking up, educating, and informing others. I am so disappointed as a parent. I am so disappointed as a Clay citizen. I'm so disappointed as a Clay voter. I have lost faith in our school district leaders. I literally was sitting at my computer the other night, nothing on the screen, and thinking, does my voice really make a difference? Thinking, does my voice really will it continue to fall on deaf ears? Thinking, do my efforts here tonight and on February 19th, March 24th, April 16th, and the special meeting on May 7th, is it worth my time and effort? And as I felt defeated and trying to find some inspiration within all of the disappointment, I heard my 10-year-old in the background repeating to memory the preamble of the United States Constitution. And what powerful words, and I found my inspiration. And tonight, the topic of my discussion is about transparency and accountability. On April 16th, during the school board meeting, I spoke about the FTE Clay Virtual miscalculations from last school year. And I just want to take this time to state for the record that the information I presented was personally given to me by the Department of Education during the Tallahassee visit that myself and 4 other concerned parents initiated on March 10th. It was not given by anyone here in our district. And I'd like to add that during my speech, I guesstimated a loss of $400,000, when in actuality it was an $800,000 loss. That was confirmed by Mrs. Legetko when we had a phone conversation. Another point of transparency is with the public regarding the proposed allocation package presented at the special meeting on May 7th, and that includes the 4 new administrative positions. 80 teaching positions have been cut, and then we have an urgency for a special meeting on Thursday, May 7th at 5 o'clock in the afternoon in Green Cove to present the package and tweak the language of these 4 new administrative positions, all while our district fund balance is 3% below the state mandated minimum. Where is the transparency in creating this discretionary administrative positions? Like most hardworking citizens, we work. I don't have the luxury of sitting in front of a computer on oneclay.net 24/7 waiting for special school board meetings to pop up. Thank goodness for social media, and that's how I was informed of the urgent meeting. I was able to attend. As a parent and stakeholder in my children's education, I am so frustrated. I'm beyond frustrated. My words echo in other parents and citizens that cross my path. Clay citizens and voters of this county deserve better, and transparency is key, and quite frankly, we are lacking in this area. So I'm going to recap the May 7th meeting, special meeting, since our county's PR officer failed to bring adequate videotape in this advanced technological society we live in. And by the way, the audio is now conveniently posted. It was late last night because I was up till 2 in the morning. So you can listen to it in its entirety. According to Mr. Superintendent, you said the proposed allocation package that includes the 4 new administrative positions will save the county $500,000. The administrative positions is part of a restructuring plan to provide a stronger leadership team to provide support for our teachers to reprioritize. Mrs. Karakis, you asked a valid question. The current administrative positions, are not already being met with the proposed new positions by someone that's currently doing the positions now? I, along with several concerned citizens and even school board members, requested for a cost savings analysis for the allocation package proposal, but I have yet to see one spreadsheet or document providing such information. Following the meeting, I sent texts, emails. All of you should have received my email. I CC'd all of you. And still to date, I haven't received one response, not one response. I was under the assumption that step 2 of the 2-step process, step 1 being on May 7th to tweak the language, step 2, then vote on allocation package, but I don't see it listed on the agenda unless it's already been passed. Mrs. Studdard, you commented about public perception of these new jobs. No matter what spin you want to put on it, you can say restructuring leadership, keeping up with the technology demands of the new testing from the state, whatever the reason, makes no difference. When my children and the children of this county lose resources, classrooms are over capacity, affected teachers lose their jobs and cannot find available work in the county, ESC classes are overcrowded, IEPs are out of compliance, the citizens and voters will never, ever, ever buy into that reason. At the school I work at, if we have an urgent need at 8:30 when all the buses pull in and kids need help off the bus, we don't stop, talk about it, create an administrative position, hold a special meeting, tweak language, discuss salary range for the new administrative position to help kids off the bus. No! We immediately and gladly work together to share in our job responsibilities for the betterment and safety of our children. I have a master's degree, and I can easily help kids off the bus. I don't need to be told. I don't need a fancy job description. When it comes to our children, we should come together, share job responsibilities. We do not have the luxury in our fund balance to give new job titles, create new administrative positions, when we have just cut 80 teaching positions. And some are still without a job today. I spoke to 2 today, and I followed up with 2 teacher friends, and one of them allowed me to share her text with her permission. She says, "No job yet." I went on 2 interviews this week. However, the first interview, I was told that there were 14 of us interviewing. There are not currently even 14 regular elementary education positions available. There are also obviously more than 14 looking. The principal said it was the most she had ever seen from surplus teachers in the county. Just now, I got a text. They're in phase 4, meaning that it's open to all applicants. All the jobs are open to all applicant types, new hires. Now they have more competition. We know that our dedicated teachers are the driving force in this county. Teachers, myself included, do not choose the teaching profession for the money. We choose teaching because we want to make a difference. We have teachers making a difference in a child's life every day. As the school year closes, I have been honored to meet many of these dedicated teachers within our county during IEP meetings. The continued mantra is always, we will do what's best for our children or for the child. Despite the budget constraints, they work for the kids, the students of this county. During one of my IEPs just this morning, I call it divine intervention, I asked a teacher if her school was affected by the budget cut. And she said yes. And she went into a rant about how the budget cuts have affected the ESC population, which is our exceptional student ed, which covers autism, learning disabled, gifted populations. And by the way, that's where the bulk of our state funding comes from. She went on to describe the injustice. She used these words, the injustice. How, and she gave an example of how an ASD student, an child with autism, would normally have 2 teachers, his mainstream teacher and an inclusion teacher to assist with the child's ESD needs for support facilitation. Due to the budget cuts, now the ASD child only sees 1 teacher, a dual certified inclusion teacher. The mainstream teacher takes a simple ESD exam, and now the teacher is duly certified to teach those ESD students. In a nutshell, we are overworking and overloading our teachers while staying within the parameters of the legal document of the IEP. But we're giving our kids the bare minimum teaching instruction. Again, our kids are on the losing end. When this new allocation package is brought to the table for a vote during some probably shady special meeting over the summer break, will you vote for more fancier titles or support the already dedicated teachers of our county? I want to talk about accountability quickly. Mrs. McKinnon is not here. She's not here because she took a new job role at her full-time job. And this is the word she used on May 7th. If a school board job isn't her full-time job, then how can you give teachers and students of Clay your undivided attention? I think it's a logical question that deserves an answer. Our PR officer, you set the tone for the relationship of the school district to the public. You're accountable for responding to citizens. I sent an email. I know we're busy. I'm not saying I'm busier than anyone else, but you can call it accountability, but it's just plain common courtesy to return an email. Myself, it's easy to point fingers, and I'll say that I'm accountable as a parent, and I have failed my children by not becoming an informed voter in 2012, but I will reiterate again that I have become a very informed voter and will challenge those seeking re-election in 2016. When is this going to stop? When are we going to realize that we are compromising our children and our future? When are we going to be transparent and accountable for the children of our county? Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Denmark. Superintendent's update.
Thank you, Ms. Condon. And thank God we live in a free country where everybody can speak. We're all entitled to our time to speak and our own opinions. We are not, however, entitled to our own facts. And although there was a lot of slightly non-factual information, I would just like to hit on one thing. Our ESE population in Clay County is very, very well served. Clay County is known for our ESE programs. The U.S. Navy recognizes Clay County as one of 4 special assignments, compassionate assignments, I believe is the term the Navy uses. I'm an Army guy, not a Navy guy, for families with kids with special needs, and make sure to tell them about Clay County schools when they station them at NAS Jacksonville. I heard the speaker say we were 3% below the state minimum for unreserved fund balance. The state minimum for unreserved fund balance, basically our savings account, is 3%, and we're slightly below 3. We're between 2 and 3, but if we were at 3% below, we would have no money in the bank, and that is certainly not the case. But Madam Chairman, I would like to invite our IS department up to give you a little bit of update on what's going on in IS and some CVA, FTE type of items that they have a lot of expertise in.
Thank you, Mr. Superintendent, board members. Inherent in what Information Services does is the collection, analysis, and reporting of information, of data. Three of the core values that the hardworking men and women of Information Services operate by are commitment, quality, professionalism, and integrity. In the spirit of those core values, in the spirit of truth and transparency, in the spirit of quality information with integrity, we feel compelled to clarify some recent statements regarding the accuracy of district data. This evening, we'd like to share for the record some key points for the board and the citizens of Clay County. At this point, I'd like to introduce and turn the presentation over to Mr. Dwayne Weeks. Mr. Weeks is the supervisor within Information System who oversees the core data systems for the district.
Good evening, Mr. Superintendent and School Board. I might be a little bit nervous, so you'll, I guess, just have to sit through this. But at the same time, I appreciate this opportunity to be able to speak on what is really, honestly, a very complex matter. In my past life, a couple of years ago, I got the chance to travel around the country and see how other states do state reporting. And to be honest with you, I can safely report that we have in the state of Florida the most complex reporting requirements of any state that I've ever seen. In fact, I went to Tennessee and they're like, you won't believe our state reporting, and we had solved it in 35 minutes basically with about 2 spreadsheets. So realistically, we're talking about a very complex subject, and we want to try to kind of illuminate tonight what was going on in the CVA FTE question and kind of sort of explain it. I've got a timeline on the presentation, and the first issue, we're going to kind of sort of dissect this into a couple of different issues. And the first issue is an issue that's actually been addressed a couple of times, which is an email that Linda Champion had sent. Linda Champion is a deputy commissioner, kind of sort of in charge of the finance wing at the Florida Department of Education. And she had an apprentice by the name of Sonia Bridges, who, as of a couple weeks ago, is no longer there. But Sonia's always been very good. We've had very open communications with Sonia. And one thing that the DOE is very, very good about doing is they're very good about running a program whenever we submit a file that basically looks at historical variance. And what I mean by that is year-to-year comparisons. So they'll be happy or very quick to tell you we might have this many more students, this much more FTE, and that's really kind of sort of the extent of their troubleshooting to a large extent. And so when we received this email, they had reported that they had actually seen that there was 100 FTE variance in one of our virtual schools. Now, this is where Florida will earn its reputation for being one of the more complicated states. Our virtual school, and almost every virtual school in Florida, has actually 4 different schools. And so what happens is there are actually 4 kind of sort of different pieces to the puzzle. And so what had actually happened is that in the middle of the year, CVA had read a piece, kind of sort of a technical assistance paper, and they had seen a piece of policy that indicated that they needed to move students from one school to the other. So when we had received the documentation from Linda Champion's office, they were basically saying, hey, you're 100 FTE short. We have, I will say this, and I think this would be true because I probably would have been up here a lot sooner, honestly. We do a very vigorous job, a very, very vigorous cross-check, verification, validation, and if we didn't, hundreds of millions of dollars pass through our office, literally. And so realistically, even though, do not get me wrong, every dollar is important. We know that it goes into the classroom, and again, I'm a Clay County, not only was a resident, but I did move to Duval. I guess I shouldn't say that. But long story short is that I did graduate from here, And to be honest with you, I taught here for a long time, so I know that right now that money has a real impact attached to it. However, with that said, if you actually look at the overall variance as far as the total number of FTE, we're talking about 0.3 of a percentage point. So if we were not as vigorous, if we were not cross-checking, verifying, validating, to be honest with you, we don't even want to imagine what a 1% variance would do. That would be a mess. But returning to this, when we examined this variance, whenever we had our database specialist go in and take a look at it, she had actually determined that Mrs. Champion's office had not actually accounted for the bump in 80, which is basically just kind of sort of a move. It was very simple for CVA to do. And so basically we may have decreased 100 in one, but we had increased 80 in another. And so by the time we actually did the math and saw a little bit of other variance, the variance was actually determined to be 25 FTE. Now, one thing that makes virtual school reporting a little bit different is that it is based on completion. And as it's been mentioned in previous meetings, other state reporting is basically attendance with a lot of enrollment and demographic records to go along with it. But in this particular case, in a completion, it being the threshold for earning funding, it was deemed at that particular point that that was a plausible variance. However, we went one step further, and of course at that point we were on four 10-hour-day weeks. But on that Monday, we actually consulted with the vendor and we tested the extract. Now, what the extract is that that's basically how Focus, which is our student information system, our system of record, actually handles the file. And so we ran through with the test, and we wanted to make sure what was put into Focus, did it match? And the answer was yes, it did. And so we wanted to rule out any systemic, any glitches basically in the system. And so at that particular point where we were with the data that we had available to us, we had actually gone through and closed the issue as far as that goes. However, one thing I want to kind of sort of demonstrate again too is that I want to kind of sort of put some words or some facts behind what we're saying. And so what you will see is you will actually see the 4 school numbers that actually represent virtual, the Clay Virtual Academies, and what you will see is that that's 7,001, 7,004. So for 2012 and 7,001, we had a slight variance, but nothing of real note. In 7,004, however, you can see the bump where we went from 2 FTE basically to 81.64 FTE. And then in 145, you can see the decrease that Ms. Champion references several times. I will say this, is that I think it's a little bit odd to some extent that they never mention the positive variance, if you get what I'm saying. And so that positive variance, I think if they would have done maybe a little bit of study, they would have been able to find that, hey, did this shift? In fact, what is interesting in previous meetings, it's kind of come back, well, they didn't really hound us about it, that they had sent basically one email, and they may have done their own internal study, to be honest with you, and said, oh, well, it moved from here to here, so that's probably what happened. But again, that FTE differential came out to be 24.93. However, as Mrs. Adams has mentioned in previous meetings, we did have an issue, and so I want to go over the timeline of that to make sure that we're kind of sort of clear, because remembering that the state is actually looking at year-to-year historical variances or so, Mrs. Adams and some of the folks at the district, and I will say this, is that I do firmly believe that the DOE would have never caught the issue. Their reporting is that complex, I guess. We could make that joke. But at the same time, I would say this, is that I think the issue that we were seeing was actually in projections versus historical, as opposed to historical versus historical. And so what we looked at is that we looked at the survey for initial submission is due in July. And then one thing that is a little curious about the CVA, or the virtual reporting period, is it takes place over the summer, so it takes place at the end of the year. And in Survey 2 and Survey 3, which the vast majority of the funding that comes from the state is generated in those 2 surveys, we have an amendment window of almost 4 months, meaning that there are 4 months that we can actually make an adjustment and the state will accept that adjustment. Here, the edit window was roughly 24 working days. And I'll talk about why that's a little bit of a complication, because the state gets very data hungry over the summer, and they have lots of different surveys going on. But we'll talk about that in a second. And August 31st, the Survey 4 edit window closes. And I would kind of sort of point everybody's attention to the fact that that window closing is probably at the kind of sort of end of one of our busiest times of the school year, which is that we've just had to wind up to start school. We've had to get ready. Actually, to be honest with you, in August, late August, we're actually getting ready for Survey 2, which is the next big round of surveys. It's surveys all the time. And then in mid-September, we had actually discovered that there was an issue, and we had notified the DOE as soon as we had found the issue. Those discussions went on very early. We actually, and I don't believe there's been any opinion that kind of counters this at this particular point, they took a relatively hard line, I think is fair to say, which is that you missed the deadline by so many weeks and there's nothing that we're going to do. However, we had found justification, and to be honest with you, we even feel like legislation behind it to where they could do that. I would never say that, I mean, in the DOE's case, I think one of the things that was a little bit interesting is that we've tried to view a relationship with the DOE. We tried to work with them in the last little bit. But to be honest with you, I felt like that line was very, very hard. And so we started to have other conversations. Now, as Ms. Adams had mentioned, we are going through an audit. And we kind of quietly high-fived ourselves, because normally you're trying to not go through an audit, but we thought this would be an opportunity to have a conversation with the Auditor General. And so the Auditor General was going to look at CVA. They were actually going to look at our virtual schools for the first time. And our logic behind that is that you make negative adjustments all the time. You've got no problem docking us. And to be honest with you, we had a very good and clean audit. The argument or the rationale we were wondering is that couldn't you make a positive adjustment? Here's the thing that I think is fundamentally unfair about the DOE's stance, to be honest with you, is that we educated the kids. And to be honest with you, I think the other thing that's a little bit unfair is that there was an issue that in the whole universe of state reporting, which is very wide and very complex, we identified and brought to them and tried to have that dialogue. They just didn't seem to want to have that dialogue. But the auditor did take a look at it, and later on we'll take a look. It took a minute for it to happen, but by May 7th, the Auditor General actually did find that that he feels that there should be a positive adjustment made, and we've identified the course records, and to be honest with you, we're ready to transmit as soon as possible, except that at this particular point, we have not gotten a response from the DOE regarding this positive adjustment. And so at this point, that's where the issue lays. We're hoping that the DOE sort of sees our side on this. I think, to be honest with you, we're absolutely fair in doing that. And at this point, we're just sort of waiting on that response. One thing I also want to kind of draw the attention to, and this graph may make sense to me and no one else, but nonetheless, this is basically a graph of all the survey that goes on between, all the survey reporting, all the state reporting that goes on between July and September. And so just to run down it, because you don't want all the details necessarily, Survey 1, which is our summer school survey, so we are running summer school, and to be honest with you, whenever we have serious data needs in summer school, and part of that is to report it so the funding that we're owed, we get. Survey 8 is also another survey. That actually usually has to do with fare testing and the PMRN and a couple of other things. Survey 6 is a relatively minor survey, but Survey 4 you can see is nested in between 1 and 8 and 6. Survey A, which I'm not sure if they did that because they ran out of numbers at some particular point. Actually, that's a CTE survey. So we're doing what is known as WITIS, which is a totally different art when it comes to state reporting. It doesn't play by the same rules. In Survey 5, which is no small deal because our school grades are actually generated out of Survey 5, and that process starts. And in between that, district process-wise, we're running through summer school, we're running through elementary and secondary scheduling all summer, and we're doing the start of school. In fact, what's funny is that they have 8 major surveys, and 4 of them overlap this particular area. And like I said, I think that's one of the things that makes it a challenge. Like I said, I think we have been very diligent. We've had a great team scouring records, trying to find. For Survey 2 and 3, our principals and our administrators have been going line by line, student by student, in order to ensure FTE is being claimed in the right amount. And we hope, like I said, in this one variance that the state sees our way. So at this point, I guess back to Carl.
And I think this last slide is also very, very important because it puts in context the work that this office does. I mean, you're not talking juggling 1 or 2 or 3 things. This is literally the busiest time of year. And for us to even process a little email that says, hey, by the way, and we're able to process that email, analyze the email, determine that the variance is within the bounds, run another extract out of the system just to confirm it to another layer of reassurance, all while we're doing all the other stuff, trying to get schools started, trying to close out a year, trying to get these other surveys accomplished. And I do think another point here is Dwayne mentioned complexity. The reporting requirements, the data systems within Florida, the complexity, the formulas. In this case, it was so complex it appears as though DOE wasn't even aware of their own formula and some of the reporting that we had done to them. Maybe they did discover it. Maybe they realized, oh, okay, that's why they the 80 went to here and the 100 went to here. Okay, that's why we don't need to continue to contact Clay County. Anything else we need to add at this point? But again, I think it's easy to hear numbers, and if you're not in this business every day, I wouldn't even say neck deep. I tell my staff all the time, you guys are using snorkels right now to keep your heads above water. We're underwater. We're becoming very creative and innovative in ways to handle the work. But for us to be challenged when we have a full staff with, I'm not kidding, if you counted up the years of experience, hundreds of years of experience in data systems in Florida in education. And so we felt compelled tonight to come to you and share to you the facts and the timelines in the spirit of truth and transparency. Thank you.
Questions, comments? That's an excellent presentation. Thank you. And it does explain things that we weren't all aware of, although Ms. Adams has filled us in repeatedly about it. So you're estimating 25 FTE. It should be a positive adjustment, hopefully. Is that what you're thinking?
No, actually, again, those were 2 different issues. The one issue dealt with the cost centers within CVA and the change there. That was a different variance issue than the second issue that Mr. Weeks covered, and that was a reporting error. That, again, was one that was discovered literally days after the amendment window closed. And Dwayne was actually being very generous with DOE. I think Survey 2 ends in October and goes through March. So, I mean, you can see the amount of time that we have to go in, and we immediately start correcting data. We run verifications and validations and all kinds of different formulas against it, and we identify that and we correct. And then by the end of March, we feel very, very good with the governance model that we have in place. So the separate issue, the second issue that we've gotten a ruling from the auditor on is a different reporting issue, and that's the one where we're hoping for a positive of 100 to come our way.
Mm-hmm. Ms. Adams, how do you feel about that? You think we'll see it? Have they turned her mic off early? Somebody help her. Give her a mic.
My light won't stay on. You know, who can predict the DOE? We've made 2 trips up there, met with the Auditor General, who believes that it should have been corrected 6 months ago. Isn't that right, Mr. Van Zant? It's just the right thing to do. We've written letters, we've shown data, the auditor, bless Alex Regan's little heart, has spent hours with us and has validated. We had a very clean FTE audit, and I congratulate our staff out there, our teachers and our admin, for all the work that they've done. The good news about this is that you will probably continue to see the most vigorous data governance monitoring ever in the future. As a result of this, everybody understands FTE. And when I say that, it's not, used to be in the old days, it's just we kind of worried about it at the district level. Schools validated their attendance and that was it. But now that we're under this FTE light and we're not real sure, you know, nobody's ever really sure what the number is going to come out because you have to wait for the magic formula in Tallahassee, then we're all real paranoid about making sure every single thing counts and every schedule is correct. I mean, we were careful before, but we're even more super careful now. We've got layer upon layer of checking. So that's a long-winded way of saying, yes, I hope that's the right thing to do. I sent them a letter. Mr. gave me permission, was it Monday? I said, please let me send this one last letter to Miss Champion. And he did. So we'll see. I hope y'all will get it at least. I'm anticipating a prior year correction. I think that's what they call it in next year's budget. That's what I'm hoping for. Okay. And if so, I'll come back and be happy to stand up here and receive the check for you or something.
I know you worked hard on it, so thank you very much. And Mr. Hendricks, that was very good. Mr. Weeks, thank you.
I was actually remiss. I missed the last call for speaker cards. Are there any other speaker cards before we move further? Okay. And then Mr. Van Zandt?
Another thing I just wanted to make the board aware of, we'll be starting an Advanced Studies Academy at Orange Park Junior High next year. It's called Wildcat Acceleration Academy, and it's designed to challenge and further enhance academic progress of a select number of junior high students. It'll function as a small learning community, and it'll serve about 44 students per grade level, offers an advanced curriculum, actually working into earning high school credits at the junior high level, which will allow those students to have further opportunity to take AP, dual enrollment, ACE, IB courses, and all those advanced academic opportunities as high school 9 through 12 students, and offer them some advanced opportunities. So I know Ms. Cornegie probably didn't personally put it all together, but she has just a tremendous team over there in instruction she's built the last several years, and they have, and I'm sure that you want to drop in after school starts and visit Orange Park Junior High for see this for yourself. Thank you, Ms.
Okay. Next item up is D2, Human Resources Special Action A.
I'll move approval.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion to approve by Ms. Karakis, a second by Ms. Studdard. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. Motion carries 4-0. Next, item C19, renaming rights at Oakleaf High School. This was pulled from the consent agenda by Mrs. Karakis. I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move approval with the deletion of the McDonald's contract.
Okay, we have a motion to approve with the removal of the McDonald's contract. Is there a second?
I'll second it so we can have some discussion.
Okay.
And is it all right if I open up the discussion?
Yes.
I just want to commend Oakleaf High School for looking at creative ways to find funding, and I think it's a great idea. And I'm not opposed to the renaming at all. I think it's great to draw the community in. And the only reason that I'm questioning the McDonald's is just because of the amount. And Mr. Sykes has talked to me about the policy and explained that the renaming part of it falls under the board, but the duration of the contract and the dollar amount does not. So that's where I had an issue. For those that aren't aware of it, the Zaxby's contract was a $15,000 contract for 1 year for the renaming of the football field. And the McDonald's contract was a $9,000 3-year contract for renaming of the basketball court. And I'm just concerned that the language in the policy says a minimum of $15,000 for the short-term lease for up to 10 years, and it's $15,000 through $50,000. And so I'm just concerned that the $9,000 for 3 years is such a small amount that it's not consistent with our policy. It's not consistent with what we're doing for the football team, football field, I should say. And I'm just worried that, somehow or another this is going to come back to the board for just kind of arbitrary discretion. And there's not any valid reason for not having it at the same amount, at least not that anybody could explain to me. So that's why I pulled the item. I would love to say yes on both because I think it's a great idea, and I'm not opposed to it at all. I'm just concerned that our policy reads $15,000 as a minimum, and that's what the Zaxby's contract reads for 1 year, but then we have a McDonald's contract that's basically $3,000 a year for 3 years, and it just doesn't sit well with me. But, if that's what the rest of the board wants, then I'm okay with it. I wanted it to be discussed. So, anybody have an opinion besides me?
Well, I actually read it and I thought, how can we turn away money for our kids? Because I'm not sure if a lot of people are aware, but our athletic programs the coaches are given their supplement, and then there's a little bit of money provided for transportation, not enough to cover their transportation needs. Beyond that, all monies raised have to come from booster kind of things, and so we don't provide any money for them. We'd like to. Obviously, I know Duval had an issue a couple years ago with they were doing away with all sports if they couldn't get outside help, and boy, they had their boardroom packed with citizens saying, please don't do that. So I have a hard time turning down money. I don't know where the $15,000 came from. I can say that living in the south end of the county, there aren't any businesses that would ever have $15,000 to give to any of the schools there. So maybe the policy itself needs to be revisited on, on some kind of basis. I don't know. It's just hard. It's hard for me philosophically. I don't know where the $15,000 came from. Maybe you all that approved it a couple years ago can shed light on where that figure came from. Because to me, it's hard to look at any of the athletic coaches and principal and administrators and teachers and students and say we're going to turn money away.
I think this was brought, and Mr. Van Zandt, maybe you can correct me, but in 2013, the $15,000 was your recommendation, correct? Or was that already there in place?
At the time, Mr. Wingate, and you wave me off or not if you'd like to address it, it's fine either way, but the former assistant superintendent and former board attorney kind of crafted that policy language. But literally, that was a stab in the dark. I see Miss Segreto from Ridgeview sitting out there. She's got something on her campus named after a former principal. We've got a football field house named after a former principal. So literally, the naming rights in Clay County went to whoever had a bucket of paint up until 2013. So we got specific. We took a good, even, level swing at coming up with a criteria. And upon further reflection, I'm hearing what both of you are saying. So if philosophically there's no problem with the golden arches painted on the floor of the basketball court, I would feel a little funny kind of holding McDonald's out, who's, long term they're going to be here after we're all gone, and trying to squeeze them for more money, and being a resident of Keystone Heights, not imagining the hardware store or one of the two restaurants we have ever being able to come up with $15,000. I think maybe that amount should be adjusted. I mean, if we don't have a problem philosophically with the naming rights, then I think the board could give itself a break, and as long as they don't have a problem with what the entity of McDonald's or Zaxby's or whoever represents, let each community within the system kind of have that latitude to do the best they can, what they feel is moral and ethical for their part of the county. Because, hey, in Fleming Island and Oakleaf, you're going to get a little bit more sponsorship than you are in Keystone and Middleburg. I'm feeling like that. So,
Mr. Sykes,
Madam
did you have
Chairman.
something? Just one second. Mr. Sykes is waving his arms over there.
I'm not waving my arm, but I want to clarify the email that I sent out, and I want to make sure the board understands our position on this, because I didn't write this policy, and it's kind of confusing. And Mr. Merrill and I, emailed back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and even he and I don't entirely agree with the analysis just on minor things, but I think fundamentally he agrees with my position on this after banging him up against the head a couple times. But let me read this so you understand this, okay? Under the 6.14D, okay, it says the following. It says, the superintendent/designee, with the approval of the school board, may name significant building components, including classrooms, media centers, athletic fields, conference rooms, common areas, and other components which are part of a building or site, including recognizing exceptional or significant non-financial or financial contributions of private individuals or corporate entities. Such naming shall specify any donor request by private individuals or corporate entities for a specific name and shall be reported to the board as an information item. Now, what that means is, under the statutory interpretation, it's called expressio unis alteris exclusio. For those Latin students out there, that means the expression of one is the exclusion of the other. One of the discussions that I had with Ms. Carricus is that in the beginning it says with approval of the school board, and then in the end it says reported as an information item. As an information item means that the board doesn't need to necessarily vote on this item. The reason that I recommend that this go on the consent agenda so the board can talk about it is in the effort of transparency. You take a look at the next section, which is we were talking about the short term and long term. And there's two parts of that that I think it's important for us to read. The first part of the duration of naming rights is as follows. The duration of naming rights shall be proportionate to the value of donation, endowment, or other significant contributions to a school. The duration of naming rights for athletic fields, grounds, and portions of schools or administrative sites or other than buildings and components shall be at the discretion of the superintendent or his or her designee. For building or components of buildings, the school board recognizes two types of naming rights, short-term and long-term naming rights. The provisions for each are outlined below. Then it talks about short and long-term. But the problem with that is, over here it authorizes the naming of it, and then it defines short-term and long-term. But here's the other issue that you go on where it defines short-term. So trying to explain this, because we have emails going back and forth where John and I were talking about this. Short-term naming rights. Short-term naming rights are applicable for donations ranging from a minimum of $15,000 to a maximum of $50,000 and shall be valid for a period of up to 10 years, unless otherwise specified by the superintendent or the school board at the time of the approval.
Or school board.
At the time of the
At the time of the approval.
At the time
Well,
of the approval.
in reading the two provisions in pari materia, okay, where you read them together, reading that in pari materia, basically, I would suggest that the superintendent or his designee has the authority to do it and report it as an information item, but after the discussion with Mr. Merrill, I thought it best that we put this out there so that the board could address it. If they had a different view of it, the board can do whatever steps the board wants to do. But I think that it was important that everybody had an opportunity to see it, because as I'm understanding, this is the first time it's come up. I may be wrong, but that's what I was advised. Okay?
Madam Chairman,
Stuttard.
I'm going to tell you, I went back, after I saw this on the agenda, I went back and copied off, the section of the policy, part of which Mr. Sykes has just read. But the language in this policy, in my opinion, there are parts that contradict itself. It certainly says on here about the superintendent, but then it also says upon the approval of the school board. So I think this language is not good. If we voted tonight to approve these, number one, this board would be sitting here voting against what is in our policy. We would be violating our own school board policy if we voted for this tonight, the way this is written with the $15,000. I think personally that this should come back to us next month, and right now I could not vote for it because it says a minimum of $15,000 in plain black and white English. I cannot vote for something that violates our school board policy. Probably, if we had time, the best thing to do is go back and clean up the language in this policy. This really is double talk. in the worst kind of way. I circled and underlined things that make no sense at all, because it talks about the superintendent doing this, and then it'll say, as approved by the school board. Well, we have to approve it. And so I don't see how you can sit here and vote tonight on something that violates your school board policy. So either we're going to have to put off the naming rights until we can get this policy cleaned up and then do it, but I don't know how you can vote on something that violates our policy.
I thought he said, and I don't want to violate policy either, but I thought he said or as approved by the school board or the superintendent.
That's why it's confusing, and it's one of the reasons that Mr. Mayor and I have talked about it. And it is, in the law, we would refer to it as inartfully drawn, okay? But what it says on the short term, let me get my eyeballs on, I apologize.
I've got it.
But it says, unless otherwise specified by the superintendent or school board at the time of the approval. So
at the time of approval means we are the five who approve it.
Right.
But you go, and that's the confusing part of it. And I recommend that this policy does be revisited, because if you go back over to 4D, it says that the superintendent or the designee can approve it in its report as an information item. It's very confusing the way it's set up.
Well, under 4D, the thing is, it says under 4D, components of facilities, the superintendent designee, with approval of the school board, may name significant building components, including classrooms, media centers, athletic fields, conference rooms, common areas, and other components which are part of a building or site, including recognizing exceptional or significant non-financial blah, 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 blah. But, it says with approval of the school board.
But ma'am, and I understand this is part of the reason that we had the emails going back and forth. Then the very last sentence says, and this is why I recommended that it be put out there so the board sees this and knows about this. Such naming shall specify any donor request by private individuals or corporate entities for a specific name and shall be reported to the board as an information item. It's problematic.
Doesn't make sense.
And I don't want to violate our policy. I also don't want to offend our business partners that are willing to give our district $9,000 as McDonald's. You know, that's a lot of money. I sat last night at the J.P. Hall Charities Scholarship Awards dinner, and a lady was representing McDonald's that gave certificates to all the scholarship winners. So I think that certainly they're a valued business partner that I'm not sure we want to
Well, that's why I've just made the motion to approve the Zaxby's, because I feel Zaxby's completely meets the policy, but McDonald's doesn't. So what we could do is approve the one, readdress this policy, and then approve it after. McDonald's can come back to us at a later date, and they can just, work on this policy or renegotiate the contract with McDonald's.
Mrs. Gilhouse?
Zaxby's does meet the policy requirements.
I don't see how we're violating our own policy with the clause in there that says unless otherwise specified. If you're saying it can be minimum 15, max 50, unless otherwise specified. So there's no violation of a policy. I do agree that the language in the policy is bad and we should revisit that, but I don't think that we are doing anything that violates policy by approving.
Well,
and that's the point that I was raising, is that if you vote and you approve it tonight, or if you vote at the next meeting it's approved, then it doesn't violate the policy, because the board can approve it, and that's one of the reasons that it was put on this item, to make sure everything's up there for everybody to see.
it seems to reason that there would be a well-thought-out reason as to why one contract would be $15,000 a year and the other would be $3,000, and we just can't arbitrarily use discretion for one and not the other. And my concern would be that there could possibly result in a lawsuit down the road, that this arbitrary discretion can come back to us. So, I like Mrs. Studdard. I can't approve anything that I feel violates policy.
Mr. Wingate, do you have anything you'd like to add, since you were the one that put this on?
Thank you. Yes, I do have a few comments about it. We talk about negotiating this. I can tell you Oakleaf, the admin, the athletic director, the coach, they spent an inordinate amount of hours with the McDonald's people. After they had negotiated this over several weeks, Then I was called in, and we met one night for an hour, and we talked about this very issue. I can assure the board that there were hard negotiations. We get to a point where we're talking to a business, and they have only X number of dollars for budget concern, advertising, things like that. And so we negotiated back and forth, and this is where we landed. It was this, or we lost the opportunity. We lost the account. This being a new endeavor, and all of you are very well aware that you're seeing pro arenas, you're seeing college facilities going into the naming rights. This around the country has filtered down to the high school level, so you're going to see more of this around the country, around the state, and probably within the district. So this being our first endeavor in this, everybody agrees the language is vague. We didn't, when we got some examples for Mr. Bickner and the language was written, everybody was doing the best they could. That $15,000 figure, we didn't know what the market would bear in this issue. We didn't know what businesses would be willing to ante up, if you will, in something like this. And so hindsight, $15,000 was probably a little aggressive. And so here we are talking to a multi-million-dollar corporation, multi-billion-dollar corporation, and one of our local franchise owners. And this is where we settled. So I am worried that we could lose this if we don't move forward. One more bit of information I'd like to give you. You asked why the $15,000 for Zaxby's and the $9,000 for McDonald's. Let me give you a few examples of that.
Actually, $3,000 for each year because it's
$9,000 for 3 years or $3,000 per year, yes. The Zaxby's folks will also, as you know, if you've seen the contract, they'll be using our facilities quite often, baseball fields, softball, football fields, over a period of a year's time. And so there's a lot of other activities that they will be utilizing versus the McDonald's folks, okay? If you prorate it, and this is another way we looked at it, is if you take the $9,000 over to 3 years, and believe me, we have had assurances from the McDonald's folks, they want to participate in some more activities, some more funding of our programs in the academic arena also. So we really anticipate them going further than this. Now that's down the road, but if you look at $9,000 for 3 years, you prorate over 10 years, you're talking about the equivalency of $30,000. You could have a company come in and say, we're going to give you $15,000 for 10 years, which averages out to only $1,500 per year. And here we've got a company saying, yes, it didn't meet the $15,000 threshold because that wasn't in the budget, but they're actually averaging $3,000 per year, which is a pretty good deal. So we've tried our best on this. I'm concerned about what will happen. We'll move forward either way, though. Okay?
Any other discussion? Mr. Van Zandt?
Can I just ask a question to clarify? Would the board be open to allowing the principals in our different communities to kind of negotiate in good faith with some oversight by our director of secondary to find the best thing they can for their school and their community? Because it won't be the same amount in every community. And I think that would be fair. We talk about site-based management and administrators and putting faith in them and the great work they do, and they do all those things. I mean, these high school people have worked with our kids. Our graduation rate's gone up 7% in the last couple of years. I mean, they're dialed in, they're professionals, they're educated. I think they can talk to the McDonald's and Zaxby's folks and come up with some good results for their kids and their athletics. So that if the board it can at least kind of in consensus give me a vertical head nod, I'll kind of go that way with a revised policy that will be more succinct than what this is.
What I would like to see is let me ask Mr. Wingate this. Mr. Wingate, is there a timeline on this that has to be done tonight on Zaxby's and McDonald's? Will it kill the deal if we don't do anything tonight and wait until June?
I think the contract said June 1st.
June 1st was what was in the contract and everything else. I can't speak for the McDonald's folks. I would like to think no. Can't say 100%.
What I would be more comfortable with is if we came back with some clean language on this policy that we can live with, that doesn't, this seems very restrictive, and in order, I have no problems with giving some leeway to the principals in their area, because different areas of the county it's going to be a little different, but the wording in this policy, studying it last night and then when I saw Mr. Sykes' email, this needs to be cleaned up badly, and I don't want to set a precedent of voting against something that's I feel in my heart is in school board policy, but if you could just bring us back some language that cleans this up. This really, I don't know how we got this passed. I must have not read it all then. I don't know. I don't know. This is the biggest mess I've ever seen.
So
If I may, to amend the policy, it's going to take 2 months. And within the policy right now, the board has the ability to accept it as it is right now if the board wants to do so.
I just don't want to set a precedent.
Well, it's not necessarily, because the board's not limits. The board can modify its policy as it sees fit on a case-by-case basis. That's part of the legislative authority that you have as a school board.
I'm not comfortable doing that.
Mrs. Studdard, are you withdrawing your second? Is that what you were saying?
What was yours, to pass one and not the other?
Mine was to approve it with the deletion of the McDonald's, and that can be brought back at a later date, but don't hold them up on the Zaxby's one. Let that go forward since it does meet the policy standards.
But we have, the policy is so convoluted, I'm not sure that you're saying that it does.
It meets it as it's written right now.
It meets it even the crazy way it's written.
But
both of them.
Unless it actually needs a vote. And then it also says that we could, or as seen fit by the school board or the superintendent. Gosh, you know,
I don't think the intent was that. I think the intent was that it was to come to the board.
For board approval.
Oh,
Yeah. 2 or 3 different times.
I don't doubt that. I'm very concerned about, in our current financial climate, turning away money for our kids.
Well, we would be turning away McDonald's $3,000 this year until it can be brought back when the language is cleaned up, but we would be approving Zaxby's $15,000.
Unless McDonald's
or
says,
we could turn
no,
it all
we're
away.
done. Unless McDonald's doesn't want to partner with us because we're splitting hairs over a poorly written policy.
Well, I think that they probably live by policy too and realize that this is.
I just don't see how we're not living by policy by approving both of these contracts when that clause clearly says unless otherwise specified. If we specify that this contract is okay with us, then that sits perfectly with the policy that's written. Even though I agree the language is convoluted, that clause protects us.
I don't agree with that.
Okay, so we have a motion to approve the renaming rights at Oakleaf High School with the deletion of the McDonald's contract. We have the motion was set forth by Ms. Karakis, seconded by Ms. Studdard. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 All opposed say no. No. Motion fails 2-2.
I'd like to,
It's sad that we
for us
didn't
to
at
work
least
on
approve
this.
the one part.
Okay. Now we will move into the presentations from the audience. Our first presentation is from Green Cove, is Casey Ludlam, a student from Green Cove Junior High. Please state your name and address for the record into the microphone before you start.
My name is Casey Ludlam, and my address is on the card. I'm in 7th grade at Green Cove Junior High. I'm here tonight because I'm upset that I was not allowed to apply for the National Junior Honor Society. I actually missed the band concert that I was practicing for all year. The National Junior Honor Society website says the requirements are 3.0 GPA, community service, and leadership. They do allow schools to raise the GPA if it is done fairly. Green Cove Junior High has made a standard that is set to reduce the number of students allowed into the society, whether they are deserving or not. Green Cove has said that students must have a 3.75 GPA each 9 weeks to be considered. This is way above the national standard. If my current grades do not change, my cumulative GPA is a 3.88 for the year, and there's no weighting in junior high. I take the most difficult classes available to a 7th grader at Green Cove. I have a 98 in Algebra 1 Honors, a high school course. I take gifted English with a combined group of 7th and 8th graders. I'm doing all the same work as 8th grade gifted English. I take advanced classes for my other subjects. This alone should allow me to apply. I have all the leadership and extra curriculum that would allow my application to be one of the top they would have received. I'm a Boy Scout with the rank of Life Scout. I'm 3 merit badges away in a project away from earning the top rank of Eagle. I'm motivated to have this within a year. I'm an assistant patrol leader and a member of the Order of the Arrow, the Boy Scout Honor Society. I was in the school play playing the part of the police officer. I'm in the beginning and jazz band where I play the alto saxophone. I go to school early every Monday morning for jazz band practice and stay late every Thursday for beginning band practice. I'm on the robotics team and go early every Wednesday and Thursday for practice. I'm on the school TV news show when my schedule allows. I go to Beta Club. As for awards at school, I was selected to go to the school science fair with my project on light sensors and robots. I earned a superior on my solo at district solo and ensemble. My robotics team won the award for the best robot at a robotics tournament. How do I not qualify? I have done everything right except I got 2 B's in 9 weeks. Why do I care? My twin sister...
It's okay, you can finish.
I'm almost done. My twin sister is going to be earning this honor, and it is hard to watch her and my friends and have people make fun of me for not getting it. I do wear a hearing aid, and little things like a teacher turning their back while talking, sitting me behind someone tall, not making sure I got the assignment, or not giving me notes makes a difference in my learning. I can't be sure things would be different if my teachers didn't do these things, but I'm pretty sure...
It's okay. Please continue.
But I am pretty sure I am smart enough and try hard enough to get the grades. I can only hope my civics teacher sees this and gives me extra credit. Wait, I'm not done yet. My mom wrote emails to important people and no one has answered. If I don't get to be in Honor Society, at least I stood up for myself and for what is right. I'm considering changing schools. I don't think making kids feel bad about themselves is okay.
Thank you, Mr. Ludlam.
My goodness.
Thank you, Mr. Ludlam, for coming to speak to us. Next, we have Kelly Ludlam.
Supposed to be the mom. Are you the mom?
I am the mom.
Okay.
My name is Kelly Ludlam, and I'm not going to give my address for his protection. I also a little upset tonight. I had to miss my daughter's band concert. His twin sister. They were to perform tonight with Green Cove Junior High band, and he was so insistent on not giving up his fight that we're here tonight. I did appeal the decision of the NJHS to the school sponsor, the principal. I sent emails to the superintendent, and Casey asked me not to stop fighting for him. Every time we got a rejection or a no answer, what can we do next? What can we do next? So we're here tonight. I'm really proud of him. I think he's going to do great things. He wants to be a robotics engineer when he grows up, and I think he's well on his way. And I'm just very disappointed at the attitude about recognition of students and honoring high-achieving students. In research, I found that Lake Asbury Junior High has a requirement of a 3.5 overall GPA for their National Honor Society. Orange Park Junior High is all A's and B's with no conduct or behavior issues. Oak Leaf Junior High is a 3.5 or higher, nothing less than a B unless it's a C in a weighted course. And no discipline referrals that resulted in disciplinary action. Lakeside requires a 3.75. I believe that Green Cove has the most exclusive honor society probably in the country. The only thing higher would be a 4.0. And I really think they should review their policy. But I did receive an email tonight at 8:08 from the National Junior Honor Society headquarters, and I'm going to read it to you. Hello, Ms. Ludlam. All chapters are required to base the scholarship criteria on a cumulative GPA. That is a national policy to which all chapters must adhere. If the chapter is operating out of compliance with the NJHS policy, the first step is to bring that to the attention of the advisor, I did that, and the principal, and request they correct the errors and outline the steps for reconsidering students who have been improperly excluded. If so effort is made to resolve the matter, you can file a complaint with our office. So I just got this at 8:08 tonight. I think this needs to be changed. My son is outstanding, and he's not the only one. There are many others at Green Cove who have outstanding records and should be recognized by the National Junior Honor Society. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ludlam.
Ms. Condon, may I say something? Mr. Van Zandt, I'd like to ask you to please look into that for them and see if there is a discrepancy. And if there is one, would you please notify the board when you notify the parents? Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Julie Smith.
Hi, my name is Julie Smith. I'm 2312 Links Drive in Fleming Island. I'm actually coming for the same reason that they are coming. My son attends Green Cove Junior High. Through quarters 1, 2, and 3, his overall grade point average was a 3.83. My son is in gifted, and they combine the 7th and 8th grades together. So he's basically taken 8th grade class. He is also in all advanced classes. He participated on the basketball team and the baseball team and maintained that GPA throughout that time. He takes Chinese lessons on the side, has for 3 years. Very bright kid. He didn't want to come here tonight because he's a little embarrassed, but Mom came for him. I do know that there are several other kids who were in the same situation, and because of embarrassment over the policy at Green Cove, they don't want to come forward, or else they choose to tell their friends, oh, I was offered to be in that, and, you know, I turned it down or whatever. So I don't think that most of them choose to do that, but I do think that Green Cove's policy is a little harsh. Actually, now that I've seen her email, they're actually not in compliance with the national policy, but they changed the minimum GPA a few years ago in order to have less kids join, which makes no sense to me. I don't think that you should raise the standard just because you have, you know, a lot of kids achieving that. It should be a feather in your cap that Green Cove has that many kids, and their GPA requirement is well above almost every other school in the county. So I think that in future that should be considered, that maybe there should be a county policy versus the school policy, and a child who is in gifted classes who is doing other stuff on top of that and can maintain a 3.83 GPA, and if his grades hold for the 4th quarter, he'll have a 3.88 for the year, I think certainly should have been offered inclusion in the National Junior Honor Society. And that's all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Was it 375?
It was
at Green-
375 every 9 weeks, and what I believe that Mrs. Ludlam said the email said was 3.75 cumulative. Mrs. Ludlam, was that? Can you please? Above 3.0 cumulative. The school, it's cumulative over the year, not per quarter, is what she's stating. The national.
Wonder why it's not consistent throughout all of our schools.
Mr. Van Zandt, will you look into that for us, please?
I would be glad to.
Thank you.
Me and Mr. Wingate got a list going.
Okay, next we have Keith Nichols.
You think that'd be the same? Doesn't make sense.
My name is Keith Nichols, and my address has been previously recorded. I want to read this into the record. From the funds in Specific Appropriations 87, $480 million is provided for salary increases, included related benefits for FICA and FRS for school district and charter school classroom teachers, guidance counselors, social workers, psychologists, librarians, principals, and assistant principals to be distributed in June of 2014 based on 2013-2014 performance evaluations as required under the provisions of Senate Bill 1664 or similar legislation as verified by the Department of Education. I mention this because there has been several occasions when Mr. Van Zandt has stood up here and told people that both the support department and the teachers should be negotiating their salary out of the $6.1 million that was Clay County's cut of the $480 million. Now, what I just read to you was Specific Appropriations 87, and I hope you all noticed that nowhere in the language of that law does it include support personnel. Bus drivers, custodians, teachers' aides, cafeteria workers, secretaries, plumbers, AC technicians, and a whole host of others were specifically excluded from those funds by law. Now, in an email I received from Ms. McKinnon, she said that there was language in the law that allowed discretion on the part of school boards as to the disbursement of those funds. Yet when I just read Specific Appropriations 87 to you, it seems pretty well specific to me. Now, I'm wondering if that's why they call it Specific Appropriations 87. At the special school board meeting recently, Mr. Van Zandt mentioned and Ms. McKinnon agreed that several counties actually did pay support personnel from the funds provided in Specific Appropriations 87. And they are correct. But to quote my mother, if the other kid jumped off the cliff, would you? While Mr. Van Zandt may be comfortable with violating the law or feel that some laws shouldn't apply to certain people, I'm thankful that the school board at the time acted responsibly. I fear that would not be the case were we to face a similar situation today. Now, Mr. Van Zandt, you told Ms. Denmark that she doesn't get to make up her facts. These, sirs, are the facts. You don't get to play games with those. Those are the facts. Incidentally, one other thing I do want to bring up, the comment that you make about the humanitarian reassignments, I took it as a personal mission to call the Navy Bureau of Personnel in Washington, D.C. I talked to the detailer that is in charge of humanitarian reassignments. She knows absolutely nothing about what you're talking about. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nichols. And our final audience presentation is from Ms. Rena Lee Paiva.
Good evening, Renly Paiva, President of CCEA, and you have my... I don't know what to say to you. I was going to talk about something completely different, but that young man was just superb. So, you know, my only thing to Green Cove was that, you know, so I don't know if you can read that, but that's what I say. But these kids are just marvelous, you know, really. You sit there and you, no matter what, and I'm sure this is going to be resolved, and I'm sure that you guys are going to sit down and sort this out, but he's definitely is just blew me away what he can do. But anyway, what I was going to talk to you about is the email I sent to the school board about your November resolution, because I don't want you to forget it. This is the last school board meeting before summer. And I am concerned about the third graders, and the third grade teachers have numerously contacted me, and third graders have, you know, I don't, you know, what can I say about this testing that hasn't already been out there and said, you know, it's just a travesty. Tracy, I got to watch what I say because I'm still an employee, right? Okay. But I expect this school board, and I think you will, hold our third graders harmless to the FSA testing. At least the DOE, it kind of cracks me up that they went to Algebra 1 and Algebra 2 and Geometry and said, oh, we'll hold you harmless. But yet we have these poor third graders out there hanging on portfolios that, you know, are complete or are not complete, or SAT 10 that was taken or was not taken, or, you know, put a hold on it. But I am concerned. if you would just allow me to say something about what Mr. Nichols said, because as president of the CCA, I am so tired of us talking about this 6.1, and I think it said teacher salary allocation. It didn't say anything else. It said teacher salary allocation. This is the memo out of Dr. Scott, Governor Scott's office, that specifically was the point of inference of what we are to do with these funds and what we're not to do with these funds. And number 8 on it is who is eligible, and the language is very explicit. Classroom teachers, guidance counselors, social workers, psychologists, librarians, principals, and assistant principals. Not. As those eligible to receive the funds from the allocations. It is very simple. It was very explicit. This was given to us from the district at bargaining. That's where we first got this. We took time, and it was excruciating because we even asked for clarification from FEA, and they came back to us and said, you could give classroom assistance, because classroom assistance, there was some leeway. And then we had a discussion on how do we split CESPA? How do we even give classroom assistants a raise and not anybody else? So I really am exhausted with hearing this constantly said at this board floor about the teachers kept it. You know, the teachers kept it because we were told to keep it. The teachers kept it because this is directed from Governor Scott's office. So that's why the teachers did it. So I would like to just move on, worry about the no money we have right now, and where we're going to go with our teachers 3 steps behind. That's where I'm worried about. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Paiva. Superintendent requests.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, to our administrators that could have gotten that and didn't, I'm sorry. You can take that up with Ms. Paiva. All right. I feel like I need to put this in context a little bit. All right? We have a great system of government here in the United States of America, the greatest country on the face of the earth. And we have a couple of branches of government. We have the executive branch, the legislative branch, and the judicial branch. And all the legislative branches in our system of government that I'm aware of have meetings more than once a month. They have meetings during daylight hours. They have meetings during the business day. Pretty much even Clay County now, with all 200,000 of our people, we stream it on the web, we put it on television, we do multiple things with that. The room we're all sitting in tonight is the Teacher Training Center. This is not Fleming Island High School. We're located on Fleming Island High School's campus. This money was given to Clay County as a specific appropriation for training for our people. So last month, or a couple of weeks ago, when we had a special meeting in Green Cove, which is the county seat, which is where the only Clay County School Board meeting room that has ever existed resides, we had a special meeting, and that's okay. Now, our U.S. Senate, our U.S. Congress, our Florida Senate, our Florida House of Representatives, our Board of County Commissioners, boards of county commissioners all over the state of Florida, and other school boards all over the state of Florida meet during the day. Florida statutes changed a few years ago to require school boards to have at least one meeting each fiscal quarter in the evening when it was convenient for most community members to get there. Clay County School Board has always had at least one meeting a month at 7 p.m. at a annually agreed upon time and place for that one regular meeting. However, our policy allows for special meetings and emergency meetings. So putting that in the context of all that, sometimes it takes more to run the largest employment agency in Clay County with 5,000 employees and almost 36,000 students. Sometimes the school board has to meet more than once a month. So with all that, and with the authority in our school board policy as superintendent to call a special meeting, I'm calling a special meeting for June 8th, which is a Monday, at 5 p.m. Please mark your calendars. We have some items that are not ready yet that we are working on. A lot's going on in the school district. Any of these lovely people out here that work for us moving our kids could tell you about them. Ms. Bush had me a little list here somewhere, but among them are property casualty insurance rates that Ms. Legutko and her team are working on. that are always brought during the summer, during the daylight, have since the 16, 17 years I've been participating. The board has asked for a legal analysis and a recommendation on legal services. I plan to bring that at a meeting on June 8th. You guys have asked me to bring allocations to you for administrators in the Clay County School District in a way that we've never shaped them before, and we're working on that, and I'll have that for you June 8th at 5 p.m. And I might even have McDonald's naming rights thing at least drafted by then. I'll add that to the list. Alrighty, and have a happy and safe Memorial Day. Thank family that's lost a loved one during this time. There's still plenty out. And I think that's all I have, Ms. Condon.
Can I ask a question? Where are we meeting? Here or in Green Cove?
It's for the TTC. We got this room.
So it will be televised?
I think us and the BCC chair Channel 29, so unless they're meeting.
They don't usually meet on Monday.
I think we should probably be good then.
I think it's important that it be televised. There's a lot of important things coming up.
Okay, now school board request. Ms. Karakas, you want to start this week?
I sure
this month?
will. I will. It's been a busy month. I think I won't go into everything that we've all done. There's been many retirements. There's been Tropicana speech competitions. There's been award ceremonies, FFA banquets. We've had a lot of stuff. One of the special things that we got to attend, you were there, Mrs. Studdard, our Take Stock for Children, our scholarship dinner, which was really nice, and we all had a good time. What I'd like to say is just congratulate all our teachers, our support staff, our administrators on another wonderful school year. I know we're wrapping it up, and I wish everybody a safe summer, and for all our graduates that'll be graduating next Friday night, congratulations, and everybody be safe. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Karakas. Ms. Gilhausen?
I would like to echo Ms. Paiva's comments about our third grade students being held harmless over this test. If we're going to hold our high schoolers, why in the world would we penalize our youngest? So that being said, I just want to wish everyone a safe and reflective Memorial Day and Memorial Day weekend. And congratulations to all of our seniors graduating. I look forward to attending Oakleaf's ceremony. And with that, good night.
Mrs. Studdard?
It's kind of nice to be on this end. I got tired of always having to go first. Okay. This month, I've got to say, I was so impressed at the math field day. That was phenomenal. I mean, it was just wonderful. What can you say? Those kids were so excited, and it's nice to see, people get excited at football games and so forth, but these kids and the parents were excited about math. Can you imagine? And the gym was full. There was standing room only. We could have used a few more bleachers if we could. It was just a great day. We had the Northeast Florida Coalition of School Board meeting over in St. Augustine. We're all looking forward to going to the June conference of the Florida School Board Association. That'll be coming up June the 10th and 11th, 12th in that time period. So, with the legislature going back into session, and we're just hoping that we'll know something, because they'll be keeping us abreast of what's going on over in Tallahassee. I know that a lot of the schools are having their award ceremonies. On behalf of Rotary, I had gone to do a presentation up at Orange Park High School Senior Awards Night. I know all the schools are really having good things, but when you go to those, it just makes your heart feel good. You just want to absolutely burst with the excitement and pride. We really have some outstanding students here in this county, and outstanding teachers and administrators. And if you go to the math field days or go to these different, the Tropicana speech contests, these kids, they're great. It just recharges your batteries. I'll be at Orange Park for graduation, Orange Park High for this graduation year. And then we've got Bannerman on Monday at 1 in this room if you want to attend another graduation. And I hope you all have a safe and happy Memorial Day weekend.
Thank you, Ms. Studdard. I may talk a little bit longer than my counterparts. I wanted to take an opportunity to take my feelings about the things going on in our state with testing a little bit further. Ms. Paiva and I have the pleasure of sitting in the peanut gallery in the insurance committee meetings. We aren't voting members unless it goes to RFP, and so we have seen each other more often than just these meetings, and we may not always agree on everything, but this is something that we share. In Broward County, in the Orlando Sentinel, and on May 19th, in Broward County, teachers will decide if third graders will be promoted or held back based on their class performance. Isn't that a novel idea? In Palm Beach County, teachers will use district tests and other local measurements to identify third graders who are not at the reading level. Keith Oswald, Chief Academic Officer for Palm Beach County Schools, said their district would not use any of the test results this year. He said the state has rushed changes through despite pushback from local districts, educators, and parents. In Orange County, the Superintendent, Barbara Jenkins, reacted to the decision from the Florida Department of Education to suspend the consequences of Algebra 1, 2, and Geometry, and she decided to take it further, holding all students harmless from the numerous common finals or district-developed end-of-course exams mandated by the state to determine teacher effectiveness. She said the new Florida Standards Assessment has not been proven to be valid or reliable. Students have lost weeks of valuable instruction time due to multiple new standardized tests. New online testing has failed repeatedly, with students unable to log on or losing their work mid-test. Throughout it all, the Florida legislature has been sluggish about holding teachers and students harmless to what amounts to a testing experiment. And then she says, more importantly, third grade promotion considerations will not include FSA outcomes which have not been validated. In the Sun Sentinel from May 20th, I was able to find an article that is called FSA Scores, ? School Grades, ? Here's the release of the Florida timeline. And I'm reading down mostly as a parent to kind of see where my child's test scores might fall, when I might find out how they did. And ironically enough, you're not going to find out your child's FSA testing scores until after September 1st, when they've started a new school year. But above that was one little paragraph that I did not know was out there that concerned me, and it says, no later than the week of June 8th, a list of third graders who scored in the lowest 20% of all third graders on the FSA Language Arts exam will be delivered to the districts. This is meant to help schools make promotion or retention decisions for third graders in the absence of an actual test score. That was alarming to me, that we would put students in a lower 20th percentile and rank them when we don't actually know if those test scores are valid based on what the legislature has told us. And then, I'm almost done. Citrus County School Board has called on Governor Rick Scott to suspend testing consequences. This was in the Tampa Bay Times on Wednesday, May 13th, but then I also believe that all board members as well as all FSBA members also received a copy of this letter that was written to Governor Scott, and I won't read the whole thing, but the Citrus County School Board on Tuesday, May 12th, reiterated its support for accountability measures, but insisted that measures be reliable, equitable, valid, and fully funded, things that it believes Florida has not done. Accountability based on faulty data, flawed assessment processes has no real value and can be detrimental to students, teachers, and schools. We therefore are imploring you to use your authority of your office, this was to Governor Scott, to immediately sign an executive order that would suspend the use of these assessments for student grades, the use of these assessments for course requirements, the use of these assessments for graduation requirements, the use of these assessments for any performance pay requirements for teachers and administrators, and the school accountability school grade for the 2014-2015 school year. And I actually have the full letter that was written to Governor Scott, if anyone would like to see that. And then my final article that goes all the way back to April 21st that actually started me on this journey of reading newspapers across the state online was from April 21st in the Orlando Sentinel. And I love the words of one of the Seminole County School Board members, Amy Lockhart. She says to the rest of her board and her superintendent and the public, what are the consequences if Seminole County says, you know what, state of Florida, until you get your act together, we're going to sit this one out. We're getting off your crazy train. What happens? So her board attorney said just skipping FSA was not a legal option since state law makes the testing mandatory. But their superintendent, Walt Griffin, suggested finding out if the district can opt out of FSA and give other tests such as the Stanford 10 for elementary students and the PSAT and SAT for middle and high school students. Those exams, he said, have been around for years and are considered reliable and paper pencil exams that take less time to administer than online exams. And then he mentioned that Monday, April 20th, was one of the most frustrating days because many students ended up sitting in computer labs waiting to take their testing. And as we know, that was the day of the infamous cyber attack, the first one. What I didn't realize was that exactly 1 month later, on 5/20, when our students were logging on to take their civics, biology, and U.S. history EOCs, there was yet another cyber attack. Leon County Superintendent has hand-delivered a letter to the governor asking him to suspend school grades. Miami-Dade, Walton, Lee, Charlotte, and Brevard have all slashed their end-of-course exams, saying their students are over-tested, and they just did away with them. Brevard is using portfolios for retention, and Broward, Orange, Seminole, and Citrus have all decided that they are not going to retain their third graders based on FSA test scores. So I would like to ask my fellow board members and the superintendent to look into all of this for us in Clay. Because I think that it's time that we too take a stand. I didn't find any North Florida districts making these movements, but I think we will see more and more. So,
Madam Chair, could I just address that?
Oh, sure. I'm sorry.
I just want to say you can add Clay County to that list.
Okay.
Because Clay County is always going to make decisions in the best interest of children. As long as I am sitting in this seat, and as long as I know Mr. Van Zandt is in that seat, that will always be the case. We have been utilizing what state statute does allow for us to use, and that is good cause exemption. We will not use the FSA or lack thereof for promotion or retention decisions this year. We don't even know when we'll actually get those quartile scores back. You're talking June 8th. That's a little late. So we have been administering portfolio assessments to our third grade students. We've also been proactive in administering the SAT-10, which is a very reliable assessment that's been around for years. Students who do not pass the SAT-10 will have some remediation and have another chance to take that test. We have summer reading camp going on this summer as well for additional remediation. We will make promotion and retention decisions for those students in question after summertime when they've had some additional remediation. But we are going to make decisions in the best interest of children, so please add us to that list.
Thank you, Ms. Carnegie. Mr. Van Zandt.
Thanks, Ms. Cornegie, and I was going to bring that up specifically with the third graders. We won't have FSA in time to do anything with it. It's neat living this with a third grader this year. They took the FSA, then they took the portfolio exam, and then any of them that didn't pass the portfolio took the SAT-10. So even our numbers going into what we call summer reading camp, especially at the third grade level, are very low. we do a lot of data points through the year with all our students, but especially those third graders. So for anybody that's listening tonight, your kids, especially your third graders, have been given every opportunity to succeed, and the ones who we still have concerns with will continue to be remediated, like Ms. Cornegie said, over the summer. Some of these South Florida districts that you mentioned that did away with a lot of their EOCs, they're kind of making a big deal about not giving this test or that test anymore. You know, back when we talked about our accreditation, I talked about our kind of silent professionals. I mean, they're all sitting right there. They love to talk to kids. You can't shut them up if they're one-on-one, but they really don't like coming and talking to the microphone and bragging. And that goes for our teachers, because all these administrators, I know we separate them out and put all kinds of responsibility on them, but they're all teachers. Every one of them was a teacher, or a guidance counselor, or a speech therapist, or something before they became an administrator. And we were never giving the EOCs that we didn't have to give anyway. So a lot of these districts are kind of making some hay in the newspaper about not giving this EOC and not giving that OC. Those were kind of like discretionary EOCs, for lack of a better term. We weren't double testing kids, and we haven't for years. The kids who had to take an Algebra 1 EOC because they were in an advanced math class, just as a for instance, when we started having to take Algebra 1 EOCs, we could have double tested those kids. It might have even raised some schools from a B to an A, because we would have put them in the FCAT and made them take 2 big math tests. But every time we shove kids in a computer lab to take a test, we're shoving other kids out. We're losing weeks of instruction. We don't like that. We don't do it any more than we have to. When I talk to you about thin client labs, and I bring Mr. Hendricks and Mr. Weeks and all these really smart gigabyte kind of people in here, we're doing everything we can to get enough devices in place. One of the things Clay County does lead in throughout the state is paper pencil options. I'm not anti-technology in any way, but until I can bring you a balanced budget, minimum fund balance, and all the technology to test all the kids simultaneously, we'll continue to fight for those paper pencil options, and in the lower grades it just makes sense anyway. The whole reason that you give an assessment is to inform instruction. The debacle with the FSA is nothing that the Commissioner of Education, the Governor, and the Legislature have not been warned about repeatedly. And we have advocated for that face-to-face with Governor Scott, Commissioner Stewart, every legislator that I could get in their door, get to pick up their phone, and that's a constant thing. So for anybody that's listening, just please understand that we do what's in the best interest of kids, with the best interest, their best interest at heart, and with the best information we have at the time we have it. And that is the daily standard here. And if people don't live up to that, I encourage them to go be successful elsewhere. Okay, thank you.
I have a question before you adjourn. And I guess I should ask Ms. Cornegie if that's okay. Ms. Cornegie, you said that there would be students going through remediation and so forth this summer, and then at the end of the summer, sometime they'll decide if they're to go forward or be held back. Is that correct?
That's correct.
But I'm sitting here, and I'm just asking because I don't know. How are you going to know how many teachers to allocate to the schools if you don't know how many fourth graders or third graders you're probably going to have? How many kids are going to be, or do you have any knowledge of how many kids are going to be in this remediation this summer? I'm trying to get my head around the numbers.
And it's no different than any other summer. This time of year, Dr. Herndon has sent out emails to the school looking at the numbers of possible retentions based on student performance over the course of the year, multiple data points, as he was mentioning, those who might be in danger of retention. FSA aside, or FCAT aside. We've never relied on that as the sole measure because we've always had good cause of exemption. So we don't anticipate any more students than we would typically have in a summer going through the remediation program.
About how many is that usually, an average?
I'd be guessing, and I hate to do that. I'd rather give you exact numbers, and I can certainly provide you numbers
of possible retentions because we have that information. Typically during the summer, as they remediate, our students do very well. Our teachers it's very small numbers, pupil to teacher ratio. They do take the SAT-10 again after some very intensive remediation, and our kids do well. So we don't have a large number of retentions. We always in our allocations anticipate a set number based on prior year. But I don't think that the numbers are going to vary from previous years, but we can certainly provide you that.
Just curious. I thought, well, how's she going to know how many teachers to put? Okay. Crystal ball time.
That's right.
Well, for the record, this school board member is opposed to what our state is doing to our kids with testing. And I do appreciate as a parent the efforts being made by Clay County. And as the mother of a 10th grader, I just pray every day that his FSA test helps him graduate from high school and we aren't in year remediation because it matters. Attorney requests.
Basically, I would like to remind everybody that Memorial Day we can be careful about people drinking and driving this weekend, but more important than that, I would ask everybody to remember what this weekend's about. Memorial Day is about remembering our veterans that have died in service to their country and their families that are going through this weekend and having this time without that member of the family. These people have sacrificed the ultimate price of these lives that are lost so that we can be in here and we can discuss and debate and have what we're doing. That price that those people paid is tremendous, and I just would like to ask everybody, when you're having your good time this weekend, have your time off, think about also the price that people paid so we could be here and have these discussions.
Ms. Condon, may I say something?
Yes, Ms. Burgess.
I kind of feel like we should hear from Ms. Adams once before we go, since this is her last meeting.
Miss Adams.
Don't you want to say goodbye or hallelujah, praise the Lord or something? Is her mic on?
No, I've got mine. I have so many things. I have so many things. I really don't have a lot to say. Because I know you don't really want to hear it. Meaning in the interest of time. But, no, I appreciate that, Ms. Karakas. I just want to thank everybody again. I've worked for 7 superintendents in my 39 years. Every one of them they were each different. Their leadership style was different. I learned something from each one of them. I've enjoyed working for each one of them. And again, I just can't emphasize enough. Gummit. I have worked in other counties, and I'm just telling you, y'all have something special here. We have something very special here. I'm not making it up, and you need to be proud of it, continue to work at it, and congratulate each other for it and support each other in it, because Clay County is a strong district. I heard Mr. Van Zant mention our graduation rate has gone up in spite of the ridiculous mess that's come down from Tallahassee. I mean, that's pretty darn incredible. It really is. In spite of all the things the teachers are trying to do out there in the schools every day, in spite of everything the principals and the APs are doing, the kids have continued to learn because everybody in this room, everybody in those schoolhouses have concentrated on doing what they need to do to move kids forward. And I'm just telling you, this is a special place. You won't find this in every school district. You just won't. So please, cherish it, work hard at it, celebrate it, keep everybody honest in it. These meetings are good for that. And thank you again for letting me work here. I really, really appreciate it, and I'm so glad to have had this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Adams. And with that, our meeting is adjourned.
because it's like, I don't want to hear what other students are doing.
Yep.
I got it. I'm coming. Apparently they have lots of Friday night. They'll be 50 because of the stars. I don't have the manpower. I'm not going to fix it, but it'll be in the ceremony. You're out for burger right now? Coming out for burger? Right now? No, I have kids graduating. I have another meeting. Oh, this is cool. My chef, you just out of curiosity, kind of sort of says it's sort of the spirit of that sort of stuff. She's more electronic.
The meanie.
Yeah, working on kids. That's the way to do it.
Mean.
I'll send it to you electronically tomorrow.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
It does.
Well done, Dwayne. She did a nice job. I will say we kind of,
Did you do it last year?
That was Dwayne put me to sleep.
You need to do it.